We are live. I am so excited to have you in our joining us for this podcast episode. It has been a long time coming. We are at least like 3 years into this, right? Because you took your first round of Young Athena your sophomore year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So 3 years into this relationship, and it's so beautiful to have witnessed your journey, just all the beautiful things. And now you're a GCU alum. I can't even believe that happened. So exciting.
Feels like a dream.
Yeah. So for all of our listeners and watchers out here, this is my beautiful friend, mentee, just absolute blessing in my life, Keerthana. And I am so excited to have you and be able to talk through your story in this forum because you are so inspirational in so many ways. And I am just really happy that I am able to hold space in this podcast series to be able to tell your whole story. So with that, would you please introduce yourself for our audience and tell them about yourself, what you studied, and then we'll kind of build from there.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Keerthana Krishnakumar Juttu, and as Kaylee mentioned, I am a GCU alum now. I studied digital design with an emphasis in animation, so storytelling and the arts mean a lot to me, and reading means a lot to me, so just stories in general. And Young Athena is just one of my favorite programs ever in my life. And it taught me so much. And I'm so excited to be here and share that story and the lessons I've learned in you too. So thank you, Kaylee, for this opportunity.
Of course. Wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, so you joined Young Athena your sophomore year. We just covered that. And when you first joined Young Athena, you actually didn't see or perceive yourself. You weren't in self-perception of being a leader, right? And since then, you've had lots of amazing roles, right? You were a Young Athena ambassador for a whole year. So you got to lead 2 cohorts of young women through the Young Athena curriculum itself. Then I was reading about the Global Health Task Force, which was amazing too. I actually didn't even I go to GCU and I didn't even know that was a thing. I remember an event that you had talked about, but I didn't like put 2 and 2 together, right? But then also you served as the president of Leaders in Action Fellowship, which is a huge deal in the Honors College. So talk to me about kind of what has happened in your leadership journey since like stepping into who you are as a leader. Talk to me about that.
That leadership journey has just been phenomenal, I'd say. And I think it's all because of really Young Athena as the foundation for it. Just Young Athena taught me so many principles and values and like how to be an authentic leader and also foster this amazing space where others can be seen and heard, but you can also come together to finish initiatives and put it out there for others to experience it too. And from Young Athena, which I'm so thankful for, and doing global health, like you said, global health was one of my favorite projects where I felt like I was a little bit in the like outside my comfort zone because it was entirely focused on research and health science in health world. And I am here an animation major, not knowing like being tasked to lead it. But luckily I had an amazing co-director, Lauren Buman, and we just bounced ideas off each other. And our team was also so involved and just they were brimming with ideas and they brought these different elements to the table, and it was just amazing putting it all together. And it really taught me a lot about teamwork and collaboration and how to make space for that, and also just create an initiative that hasn't been at GC before and try to make it successful. And then, like you said, president of Leadership in Action Fellowship, that was a big deal. It felt a little bit like I wasn't ready for it at the beginning when I first received the news, but I looked to you for it. And I think I found a little bit of courage to go along with it. And I went into it and I had an amazing team. I had an amazing vice president to lean on. And it was just the most amazing experience that I could end my GCU journey with.
Oh, I love it. I remember you text me and you were like, oh, I think you messaged me on Instagram and you were like,
Yeah.
Kaylee, right?
Yes.
And I was like, you got this. Like, what? Wait a
Yes.
minute. But I know it was like your senior year, first of all. You
Yeah.
always carry a giant load of courses, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
thing. So then, and then you have all these other initiatives that you're doing outside of it. Also, you're incredibly involved in your family. And so I'm
Mhm.
sure when you were like, oh, panic, right? Like, let me figure this out. But look how beautifully you executed it, right? And so I think that's just a testament to part of our conversation about comfort zone, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes the easiest way to recognize your own potential is how, like, the things that other people ask you to do,
Yeah,
right? Because
definitely.
sometimes they don't ask you to do it if they don't see the potential that you could, right?
Hmm.
And that's not to
Definitely.
say we should accept everything that's not in alignment. But yeah, no, like it was beautiful. And then like getting to see your faces on the screen at the honors banquet, it was like, it was just such like a, sometimes I like tear up over like just remembering when you first came into the cohort and you were like, trying to decide your core values and you know what I mean? And it was like you were really in this period of beautiful self-discovery and like who do you want to be in the world and what do you want to contribute and what do you want that legacy to be to have seen
Mm-hmm.
you step into all these leadership roles. I'm just so incredibly proud.
Oh,
So proud.
thank you. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome. Okay, so you have brought impact to so many like events, right? You did
Mm-hmm.
the I'm sorry, grand rounds in global
Great.
health,
Yes.
honors banquet, there's like the student leader training, next gen leadership conference, like all of these things. So how have you learned over time to create space for like that teamwork aspect while still like
Mhm.
trusting your own voice and your own contributions and like making sure that you're still in that leadership and still being heard in all of those ways?
I think it's sometimes a little hard as leaders to create space, but also add in our voice and then make sure that we're heard. And it can go the other way to not domineering the field with our voice and then not letting space for other questions or other suggestions. And I think it all comes down to being adaptable and learning that plans will always change is the people that matter. And for me, it came through a multitude of experiences, but I remember this one time in Grand Rounds. When we were, Grand Rounds is basically where um, a researchers research a topic and then they present the findings of that to a wider audience that's not always knowledgeable in that specific topic. And we wanted to bring that institutional practice that happens in hospitals and other health institutions to GCU. And so there's our little group that's all students, and we're thinking of doing, okay, all these different research topics. And when we were looking at videos for inspiration, we saw that they were mostly like lecture based. And so it was lecture heavy, and college students don't really tend to listen during lectures.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were thinking of how to better engage them. And I remember one of our team members, she was like, oh, we could do activities and we could do this. And then we could um, space out the lecture with these activities in between to create it engaging, also but also to reinforce the topics and the lessons and everything they've just learned. And I thought it was an amazing idea, and we said, yeah, we should do it. And seeing the joy on her face when she was like, yes, yes. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is what teamwork is. This is what authentic leadership is, because it is saying yes to ideas and trying them out when you're a leader to implement them and see just how it goes, to make sure that people feel heard. And say if you're not in a like a specific leadership role, not an official leadership role, then we can still try to create that space by offering suggestions and also being brave and asking others to step in as well.
Yeah. I love that. And I think you just have such a eloquent and like beautiful way that you sit in expression. And I feel like because of the background you have, I feel like your ability to hold space for others to share, because sometimes your expression was overlooked or not heard, right? And I just think that that is a superpower of yours, because you were in the experience of not being heard. Now you make an exceptional effort to make sure that the collaboration is there. So I love that so much. I love that. So on the topic of like just self-expression, because one of your amazing gifts is being able to articulate your emotional experience. Not a lot of people have the ability to like just express with that emotional vulnerability, but still like help us on the path, right? So it's not like emotional expression. It's like, here's what I'm experiencing, and that's because, right? All the other things. We've had lots of
Yeah.
text conversations where you're like, I'm having this experience and I know it's not from this situation. Can you help me navigate it? So I think that's really such a perfect part of your leadership. And I think it makes you magnetic because you allow people to be in their vulnerable, right? So how has that emotional expressiveness helped you build trust and connection in these leadership roles?
I feel like being authentic in that way has really made sure that they the people that I'm leading know that I care about them genuinely, and I will always put them first over projects and deadlines. And while projects and deadlines are important, the people's well-being and their mental state is also important. And I think it's also shows that I will not be like deceptive in any way like I am. I admire and I aspire to have clear communication when I communicate with the directors or with my team specifically, making sure that people are not left behind. Um, and just, I think that's how it has really helped build those connections, because I really do follow the philosophy of like live and let live.
Yeah.
Everyone is living their own lives, and all we can do is live our own. And when we come together, we create something beautiful.
Yeah. Preach. You know me and my snaps. Yeah.
Yes.
Right? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Yeah. We talk about that a lot in Young Athena.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to tell something to sophomore year Keerthana, what
Mhm.
thing would you tell her before stepping into Young Athena?
Mhm.
Like what would that look like?
The first thing that pops into my mind is don't be afraid, because a lot of things in my life, I've lived a cautious life. I feel like I did have like this perfectionist image that I somehow developed in my academic years. And that just spilled over into my personal life as well. And so I was like, oh, I have to be this perfect daughter, this perfect sister, perfect student. And that means keeping that self image of like doing all the right things, not saying bad things, not engaging in bad behaviors. And so when I sometimes get situations where it's like stepping out of your comfort zone, it's scary. And I am more of a stay in the comfort zone, or it gives me a little bit of anxiety to just think about, oh, I gotta do this. Okay, no. Then I have to like verbally logically think myself, oh, this is how you do it. Okay, and then I'm going to follow my logical plan and then do it. And so I feel like being in being held back by fear a lot is something that I've experienced. And so I'd say don't be afraid. And also, I recently watched Disney's 2015 Cinderella movie, the
Yeah.
live action one of Cinderella, and one line that they said really has captured me, and that is have courage and be kind. So along with don't be afraid, I'd say have courage and be kind, because until we step over that self-limiting boundaries or just barriers that we have, failure is hard, but it's sometimes worth it to go beyond that barrier.
Yeah. So powerful. Yeah, so one of the things that you and I have talked about quite a bit is like the self-advocacy piece, right? Because even when you were originally talking about changing your major, right? Because that was like how do I tell my parents? Right? Right.
Yeah.
You were like, I think I want to change my major. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, my family is
Yeah.
very conservative and I'm not sure how that's going to go.
Mhm.
So I love that, like, even in the conversation about courage, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, sometimes that courage is like for myself, is the self
Yes.
advocacy of, okay, now I need to take this courageous step and advocate for myself in order to have the bright, beautiful future that I want, right? So it's really challenging, right? Especially for women leaders. That's one of the things we talk about in Young Athena is like, how do
Mhm.
we get comfortable in that self advocacy piece? So, do you have any recent moments from this past semester where you had to like advocate for yourself, or and like what?
Mhm.
How did you handle that differently than you would have handled it in the past?
There was this one moment in Leadership and Action Fellowship, actually, where I advocated for the inclusion of a different religious voice, just story into a devotional. And GCU is private Christian affordable, so it is very Christian based. And I have seen the beauty of Christianity, and I've worked alongside people who are so Christian, who are so in their faith, and I just love them for it. And I've heard so many amazing stories from the Bible about Jesus and how it empowers them to live their best lives. And however, that does sometimes create a little bit of disconnect, in that I don't resonate as much, though, just because I'm not Christian, or I can't translate the stories that they're telling in a way that I can take something away from it. And that moment, well, I thought, if I can still get something out of a Christian story, even when I'm not Christian, maybe other people around me can get something out of a different religious story, even if they're not that of that religion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I proposed the idea of just having, like, telling a story from a different religion in our devotional of Leadership in Action Fellowship. I was not necessarily shut down, but it was cautioned against, just because it is very precarious to toe that line, just due to the current political atmosphere, but also just because of it doesn't align with GCU's mission and vision of Christianity at its focus. And so I talked to you about it, I remember, and I talked
Yeah.
to Ashley about it, and trying to find out. It felt like rejection a little bit, even
Mm-hmm.
when my supervisor did not mean it like rejection. I know that. She was just trying to be cautious and do what's best for all the people. And but it felt like it. And talking to you about where is it coming from, where it could possibly be coming from, and what could I do next, really helped me kind of understand what is happening and say, okay, my delivery was wrong when I first pitched that idea, because it was emotional. And I need to reshift my focus to, how can I make it that is it involved in the spirit of inclusivity,
Mm-hmm.
and found it in that, so that it can enrich everyone's worlds, everyone's viewpoint. And so, after talking to you about that, I actually scheduled a meeting to go about it and talk over it again, but this time with a little bit more detailed plan of how I wanted it to go out. And then we did decide that it was best to tag team it. And so having one person who is, fully Christian, fully in their faith, but also recognize that, having someone else of different viewpoint helps sharpen our each of ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
it brings about a beautiful, more creative thoughts to focus. And so
Yeah.
that was so hard, I'd say. But I think it was worth it so much more, just because. And I'm so glad I had you and Ashley and all the other people in my life as support as I was going through it.
Yeah. It's so amazing to watch that and like bear witness to not only your ability to go, I think this is right. Like this feels right, right? I think your heart was in the right place. Where you're saying like you went in from an emotional space. I can see how that might be your perception, but that's not how I perceived you, right? I think the emotions after, where that, like, kind of when you said you felt like rejection, I think that's when the emotions crept in. But I think the heart purity and the intention of what you were trying to accomplish from an inclusivity space, it was just such a beautiful marrying of both worlds, because you personally exist in both worlds, right? And you're not the only student at GCU who, I mean, we have tons of students in on student visas from different countries all the time, right? And they all have their own religious backgrounds and all of the things and all the culture that comes with where they're from. And so I think you really opened a door to like the inclusion piece, but also just being more culturally aware. I think so much of America right now is like, there's like the cultural awareness, I feel, in a lot of experiences low. And so you having that thought of like, hey, I really think that I could make some magic here if we could create some more inclusion. I just think it was such a beautifully placed opportunity. And so I'm really glad that that all worked out how it did, because yeah, but it was a huge self-advocacy moment for you, because you almost gave up.
I did.
Yeah, you almost
Yeah,
gave up.
I
You were
did.
like, okay, forget it. She said no. And I'm like, wait, wait, pause for a second. I think if
Yeah.
we laid it out with a plan, it would be easier to receive, because right now we're speaking in hypotheticals, right? And once you like
Yeah.
laid out the like, here's what I think this could look like, it was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, I love that so much. So speaking of culture, because I want to dig into this a little bit as well. You moved to America in middle school, right? And your cultural background is just such a meaningful part of who you are. It's like how you experience your family, like a lot of the things that you all do together. And now that I know both your sisters too,
Yes.
lucky me. So how has your culture shaped the way you lead also? Because I know that there was some resistance, I think, when we were talking about being a young woman in like your family, your voice is not always heard, right? There's not like your parents are considered the elders and like you follow that lead. So talk to me about how like your culture shaped that, but then how you've kind of learned to overcome within your own leadership and advocacy.
Yeah. I think our culture is beautiful. Like I've learned so much good out of it, and there, like, we place a strong emphasis in family and togetherness, and doing things together means a lot, because it is there, just that togetherness is how we operate and how the world sees worth too in our culture. And so I think coming here was a little bit of a culture shock in the emphasis in individualism here in America, because I know that is a big part of the US. And a little bit of battling that was hard, because now I'm exposed to this new worldview of, it's like, oh, my actions and my beliefs, and this is what I believe, so this is what I'm going to do. And some people accept that, and that's not always appreciated in my family. And
Yeah.
that also came to in the major that we were talking about when I was choosing what major I want to do. My parents were forcing me to more of a STEM path, because they believe that that's what's going to benefit us in the future the most, because that's where the money is and where the stability is, because stability is also one of the biggest just things that we strive for in our culture too. And but I am going, no, I want to study art, I want to study animation. And it was a little bit of a struggle trying to place myself and follow this path that I wanted to create for myself. And at that point, it was hard without Young Athena, without all of it. But now, if I could do it all over again, if like doing masters too, there are like my parents, they mean well, and they recognize like the work that I do is impactful and everything. And so I love that they're that way. Um, Even now for masters, they did try to persuade me to take IT or computer science or things that go towards that. But I'm like, no, I did my bachelor's in arts, and now I see the value in computing. Now I have an actual interest in computing and coding and all of that. So now I'm saying, okay, where's the intersection? and I'm advocating for myself a lot more, just because of the experiences that I've had at Young Athena that empower me to have those conversations and stand and say, no, this is kind of what I want to do, and let's try to find middle ground. Let's try to find where both can work.
Oh, so good. It's so good. On this topic too, about your culture, because I think not only like personal, professional growth, right? Young Athena is created to touch both of those. But now stepping into a leadership role, like your background and your culture create this uniqueness about you, right? Like, and not just talking about, but even like the way you speak. And sometimes the words you choose are even somewhat different than the words that we use here, right? So talk to me about now moving out of your family a little bit and that external focus. What are the strengths and challenges that that cultural uniqueness has brought to the table? And how have you like either worked through them, overcome them, embrace them? Like, talk to me a little about that journey.
Yeah. I'd say it was a lot to be curious of other people. Luckily, I've had really amazing people in my high school and in my middle school when I first moved here, and they were so kind, and they were just always willing to help. And so I think that gave me a little bit of safe space to go to my English second language classes and learn a little bit more, and also to really just learn how to be myself more. And that brought up my strengths to, like, if they're so kind to someone like me who is outside, who is a little different, I can also be kind too. And that kindness is also a culturally raised trait in my family, because we do believe in be kind to other people, be respectful to other people, to the elders as well. And so that has brought in to how I interact with other people. And I think as I kept interacting with the world around me, with this completely new world, it did change a little bit, adapted, and changed in just the way I act. But I think at the core, it remained the same. And I think that is what founded a little bit of my strengths of just being curious of other people's stories and seeing what makes them who they are. And also just how do they react and why they react that way. Some of the challenges has also been in really connection, I'd say, because I would have this experience of like, oh, there's this festival in my family and we do this and we celebrate this because we have this gods to celebrate. And then it comes over here and it's like, there's not really that shared experience. And so just being curious again has helped bridge that and be like, oh, well, this culturally festival is kind of like Christmas, in the spirit of Christmas, or in the spirit of this festival, things like that. And I'd have to say I am very fortunate that I've had so many amazing people who are so kind and so curious in my life too. So
Yeah, that's powerful. I didn't even like really put that together of how hard it would be to celebrate with your like circle of friends when you culturally you don't celebrate the same things. Right?
yes.
So it's almost like instead of being in celebration, you're almost like in education and celebration, right? And then it's like, oh, like I can't just have a birthday party. I have to educate you on what a birthday is and then tell you why we party for it, right? It's like a whole experience. So that's really powerful because I think, right, I'm American born. I've lived here my whole life. And so I feel like you follow into those status norms, but then moving here in junior high, and then you're like, oh, like everything here is different. And then how do we stay true to our cultural traditions while also, you know, moving into the modern day America space? So yeah, I love that that like having that curiosity though in your friendship circle has been really helpful, because I think if we all spent a little more time being curious about the things that make our friends happy, we could really like hold space for a really beautiful connection. Yeah. So part of this, that one thing I want to bring to the conversation is just your ability to be authentically you. And I know that it hasn't always been that way, right? There was a lot of reservation on who you were when I first met you even. And like, you spoke and you shared in the classroom, but it wasn't like the openness that I've seen, especially in the last cohort that you were just in. Like that, just kind of understanding the evolution of you in that space. So you now have kind of made that your mission of like that just personal, professional, and even emotional authenticity. So how has embracing yourself fully and sitting in that self-empowered space helped you use your stories and use your lessons of life to like uplift others? Because I know there's lots of opportunities where you're like mentoring people and helping people. So tell me a little about how powerful that's been in your life.
I'd say it's definitely been so powerful because people have poured into me. Like having you as a mentor and having the other facilitators as mentors really has, and you're like, you didn't just stick with like, oh, this is what happened. Okay. Like it was, nothing was surface level. Everything was deep and like, whys and the hows and all of that. And you all seeing potential in me and talking to me about it and just connecting with me so deeply. I think that is what I want to do to other people, what I want to have with other people. Just because I see like people have amazing stories to tell just from their past. And some are tragic, some are sad, some are happy, but all of them deserve to be heard and honored. And I can do that with by staying curious, like we mentioned before, but also just connecting deeply and kind of taking what's been poured into me to pour into others. So
Yeah.
I'd say that, yeah, I think I'm just really curious about people's stories, but also just how can we connect together and how can we do amazing things together, but also just how can we be amazing together.
Yeah. Okay, so it's ironic to me that you're so curious about people's stories because you're so passionate about storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this, like the flip side of the coin is how deeply you seek understanding because of your very storytelling nature. So I didn't even get that until you were like, I'm just curious about other people's stories. And I was like, stories? Yeah, right?
Yeah, and that has also been, I think, just because of the media I've consumed. Like when I first moved to the US, like books are not really that much important in India. It's not, we don't really use books except if it's like textbooks. And so just fiction novels are not really heard of in India. And when I moved to the US, and I was like, oh, my middle school has a library. Okay, and my friends want to go to the library, and we hang out at the library in the morning before classes begin. And I asked my friend, like, give me a book to read. And that book was all about stories too, and how people can tell stories to inspire others to take better action and also just become more aware of ourselves and become better versions of ourselves. And I think just that itself impacted me so deeply that I'm like, stories, stories, stories. And of course it's people, but also people tell amazing stories with everything they say. And
Yeah.
so it's just so fascinating to hear all of that.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love that lens that you look through. So storytelling is a huge part of who you are. And now you're an animation major, which is more storytelling just through pictures, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So with that, what do you want to do with it? What do you want to what stories do you dream of telling? What kind of impact do you want to make? Is there like a certain genre that you want to impact, or like tell me a little about that, like where you plan to take animation?
I definitely see animation in young adults. Young adult novels played a big part of who I am and how I like the mindsets and the lessons that I've learned comes a little bit from young adults, young adult fiction, particularly fantasy, just because of them going through these different emotional experiences and learning to live with it and learning to do stuff from it. And it's just been fascinating to me. And I definitely think there's a term for it, technical term called Bildungsroman, which means coming of age stories.
Okay.
And I think that's the ones that I relate to most, because those coming of age stories are literally where a young person learns something through different events and becomes a more fuller, much better person towards the end of the story. And that transformation is always so amazing to see.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of stories I want to tell. I want to tell stories of hope, of beauty, of seeing the good in people. And I love fairy tales. I love all the fantasy genre knickknacks. Like everything that comes with fantasy, I think is so beautiful. And that imagination really just makes the whole world better for it, because you learn to be a better person through these stories too.
Yeah, because you're witnessing someone else's experience and then deciding, right, if that ever happened to me, how I would navigate it. There's a huge amount of depth there and like change and transformation. And I really feel that's why like the self-help novel piece is so good, because usually in self-help novels, you're getting someone else's story tied with the
Yes.
underlying tools that they used, right?
Yes.
So I love that you've like kind of tied this all to animation too, because now if you're like, oh, that's the genre and there's always a message to it, now you have an opportunity to tell stories that create change or help people find connection, right? Even if you told your own story through animation of what we were just talking about, like how do I be othered in America because I'm on a student visa and I'm of a different culture and all of those things, but then also stay in a place where I feel okay navigating all these new experiences with all of my culturally diverse friends, and how do I grow better because of it, right? Like your story needs to be told. Maybe that's a part of the reason that you're here though, right? Telling us your
Yeah.
story. So yeah, I love this so much. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm only
Mhm.
gonna ask you one more question, but I want to kind of know where you're headed, right? You already
Mhm.
accomplished so much, and I think even you celebrating yourself, because I think you accomplished more than you ever thought you ever would. Right? Looking at
Mhm.
that like just personal
Yeah.
reflection. So what's next? What's after college? What are you dreaming about? Like what is your bright beautiful future going to look like?
Think for now it is more studies. Just speaking professionally, I'd say it's more studies. I want to learn a little bit more in the coding space, but also in the design space, and how we can interconnect those. And that interconnection comes in websites and games and all of that. And so I want to explore all of those pieces and see what I can learn through my master's. But I think just personally, I learning to be a little bit more authentic in expressing who I am, because I do find that there are times and places where it that I'm not authentic, and I, with hindsight, I recognize that, but I want to be able to recognize that in the moment and choose to be authentic. And I think that needs a little bit of personal work. And so I think that is the portion I want to find other organizations to pour into as well, and just learn how to be more authentic, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And authenticity is a journey. So
Yes.
don't think it's a train you ever get off, right? We all have these like the suitcases. We always talk about the suitcases and we carry those things around. And then at some point in your life, you just look at it and you're like, actually, this doesn't even serve me anymore. Like, why am I still holding it? Like, just set
Yeah.
it down. It's okay. But we almost don't know how to set it down because you've been carrying it so
Mhm.
long. You're like, oh, well, if I set that down, then who am I? Right. And it's like, it's you
Yes.
without another suitcase, right? You're the same.
Hmm.
You'll be okay. There's no need to hold
Yeah.
it anymore. Yeah, no, I love that. That's so powerful. So stay the course. You got it. You're such an amazing soul. I'm just so honored to know you and to have been able to bear witness to your journey, and everywhere you've gone and everywhere you're going to go. I'm going to be right here by your side,
Oh,
whatever you need, because I'm just so proud of you. I'm so proud of you and all the growth and all the hard work you've put in. So all right.
thank you.
Well, thank you for blessing me. Thanks for being a part of Young Athena so many times.
Mhm.
I'm like, you were at every high school event last summer. You were in your own cohort, and then you were in 2 ambassador cohorts, and then you were in all the high school ones, and then you were in another, right? It was like a whole, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I just love this. And seeing your beautiful face every time I'm stepping into a new cohort, and I'm like, oh, you're back. Yay. It's so good. Yeah. So, all right, Beauty. Well, thank you for everything. And if you need me, I'm always here, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you.